Hello, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining in. My name is Veronica Alvarez, and I'm very glad that you are joining us today. We have a very great presentation with Consolidated Planning Group. But before I present my speaker, we are going to talk a little bit about Partner Research Network. Partner Resource Network is the parent training and information center for Texas. We are funded by the Department of Education, specifically the Office of Special Education Programs, to provide free resources and training for parents of children with disabilities and self-advocates. Our mission is to empower and support Texas families and individuals impacted by disabilities or special healthcare needs. Who we serve, again, parents of children with disabilities and youth with disabilities ages from 14 to 26. And we are here to serve you guys. So our age range goes from 0 to 26. This is an example of a fact sheet of what is a PTI, the Parent Training and Information Center, with the QR codes. Please visit our main page, prntexas.org, and you are going to find a lot of information about special education, advocacy, our Partner Research Network fact sheets with information from babies and toddlers, so from school-age children and young adults with disabilities and youth resources. Partner Research Network was first founded in 1998, and now we have 4 projects serving parents. Myself, I'm part of the team project in the red area. I'm in Region 13, that's Austin. So we have regional coordinators like me across the state. The only difference, we have different projects. We have the PAC project in North Texas. That's Dallas, Fort Worth, all those regions. Then we have the PAC project, that's the Gulf Coast, Houston area kind of thing. And then Team Project, we are central, that we serve Austin, San Antonio, and the Rio Grande Valley. And then we have the PEN project, that's West Texas and everywhere else. If you are visiting here and you don't know your regional coordinator and you want to contact one of us, please type it in the chat box, send me an email, and we can put you in contact with your regional coordinator near you. In the chat box is my information and also Allison information. Again, our services are free and we offer parent workshops, youth workshops, webinars like this one. We do statewide conferences. We offer information and referral assistance. We support in our meetings and IEPs. We do parent leadership training, youth leadership trainings. We have youth camps across the states. Like I mentioned, my conference is coming up here in Austin. We have a main conference in September 13. You guys are invited. So this is several websites, our main website, and this is links are for our online courses, and you can find some recordings and our events there in our web page. Also, we have a Facebook page. This one is for PRN Team Project. That link that is in there. Again, this is my contact information. You can find my information also in the chat box. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing. And now I'm going to present you guys Allison Schaberg. She is a financial planner and founder of Consolidated Planning Group, and she has a lot of experience working with families with special healthcare needs. And also, she's a parent of a youth with a disability, so she knows what she's doing, and we love her a lot. Thank you so much, Allison, for being with us, and please take everything from here.
Thank you so much, Veronica. It's always a pleasure partnering with you and your organization. Partners Resource Network is awesome and provides a lot of awesome resources. It's always encouraging to know that there are organizations out there that can help families along their journey with so many of the different aspects, and that's a lot. I know that as a parent myself of adult kids with disabilities, it's hard. It's like drinking from the fire hose most of the time. Like, what am I supposed to do? What am I not supposed to do? When am I supposed to apply for things? Those types of things. So we're going to take a deeper dive today into Medicaid waivers. So we're going to be talking about that from a housekeeping perspective. We are in webinar mode today, which means we can't see you or hear you. So if you were trying to turn your camera on and it didn't work, that is why. But our chat box is open, and so we do invite you to put your questions in the chat box today as we are going along. So as she mentioned, I'm the owner of Consolidated Planning Group. We are a holistic special needs financial planning firm. We're nationally certified as Social Security advisors, members of the Special Needs Planning Academy, and chartered special needs consultants. Our whole firm is nuanced in planning for special needs. We help people plan for the future of themselves and their own retirement, as well as what happens when we're gone. How do we fund a special needs trust? How much money do we need to fund a special needs trust? How and when should we apply for public benefits? What benefits and programs are out there that my loved one may qualify for? We help with all of those things. We put protection plans in place, lifetime care plans, transition planning. We help set up ABLE accounts, and we do a lot of advocacy by way of webinars. So yes, we partner with Partners Resource Network on a regular basis, but we do webinars every week, usually 2 or 3 times a week, on topics on planning for special needs. If you can think of a topic, we've probably done it. We partner with other organizations, attorneys that serve the special needs community, organizations that serve the special needs community. And these webinars are designed to empower you and to give you tools and resources for free. It's your time in sitting through a webinar, but to help you on your journey with your loved one. So again, put your questions in the chat box. Veronica's going to be monitoring the chat box today, and she's going to chime in, and we're going to take questions throughout, not just, at the end. So if you have a question, put it in there because probably somebody else does too. I would like to say that Consolidated Planning Group, we are domiciled in Texas, but we do serve all across the United States. So if you're visiting today and you're here on this webinar and you are from another state, we are talking about the Texas Medicaid waivers today, but all states have Medicaid waivers, and they may call them something else and they may have different functions, but every state in the United States has Medicaid waivers. But first, I don't want to assume that everybody on here knows what a Medicaid waiver is, because it's something that is thrown around in the disability community all the time. And usually the way that this is thrown around is your child on the interest list? Are they on the waiting list? Where are they at on the list? Are some of the things that people say. And sometimes people say, yes, my child's on the list, but they really don't even know what they're on the list for. They just knew that they were supposed to sign up, right? And so what I want to say for the other people that may be from out of state, not all states have a waiting list, because some states, people are not waiting at all for a Medicaid waiver. In the state of Texas, we have a very long waiting list for Medicaid waivers. These Medicaid waivers are designed to waive off some of the costs of care for caring for an individual with a disability, to keep them in home and community-based services and out of being institutionalized, ideally. Okay, that's the point behind it. And they cover a number of things to defray some of the costs of caring for an individual with a disability. So we're going to kind of get into some of the different waivers, how you get on the list, how you check the status of where you might be on the list, and other things that may come up along the way when it comes to crises or other things that come up. So the first thing, so we're talking about Texas Medicaid Home and Community-Based Waivers, HCBS. And as you guys know, the Social Security Administration, Health and Human Services, we have acronyms for everything. And those acronyms in themselves could be confusing. So everybody today that is registered for today's webinar is going to get a copy of today's slides. So I want to mention that, because you don't have to write everything down that I'm saying, because you're going to get a copy of these slides. And you're also going to get a link to the recording if you want to share it with somebody else, or if you need to go back and listen, or if you had to step out early. So the first one is our class waiver, the Community Living Assistance and Support Services. Then we have DBMD, deaf blind with multiple disabilities. We have HCS, Home and Community-Based Services. We have Texas Home Living, TXHML. We have the MDCP program, which is the Medically Dependent Children's Program, Fragile Children's Program. We have the Star Plus waiver, which is an 1115 demonstration waiver. We have the Youth Empowerment Services waiver, which is also called the YES waiver. And then we have the Community First Choice, which is also the CFC waiver. Okay, so you guys, again, you're going to get a copy of all of this. So our class waiver gives home and community-based supports to children and adults with related conditions. There are over 200 related conditions like cerebral palsy, spina bifida. The related condition must have occurred prior to the child's age 22. The class waiver does not have an intellectual disability requirement. Most of the waivers in Texas have an IDD, intellectual disability requirement, of an IQ of 70 or below, or 75 and below if there's multiple disabilities, but the class waiver does not, okay? So then we have the deaf, blind, multiple disabilities, the DBMD. Say that 3 times fast, that's kind of a mouthful. This gives services for children and adults who are deaf, blind, deaf and blind, and have a related condition that leads to deaf and blindness, who also have another disability, okay? So the waiting list, the talk is, for years, they've been saying that the waiting list is in excess of 17 years, and more recently we've been hearing 17 to 20, with 20 being more accurate as far as the timeline of when a person goes on the list until they actually get a waiver. So if your loved one is not on the list, if you're hearing this for the first time, that will be an action item that you want to take following this meeting, is to get your loved one on these lists. The HCS waiver, this does have a requirement of intellectual disability. This gives services and supports to children and adults with an intellectual disability or a related condition who live with their families in their homes or in a small group home with no more than 4 people. And so some of these waivers have attendance services or respite services. We're going to get into more of that. A parent or a family member might be paid by the state to be a caregiver for an individual with a disability. Depending on the waiver, they may pay for various therapies. I always say, if you can think of the therapy, it's probably covered. Like, there's music therapy, aquatic therapy, speech, OT, PT, all of those different types of therapies. There's art therapy, different things like that. So it depends on the waiver on what those things pay for. And then we have the Medically Dependent Children's Program, Fragile Children's, MDCP. This gives services in children to children and adults who are 20 and younger, who are medically fragile, as an alternative to receiving services in a nursing facility. So medically fragile does not mean autism, right? Medically fragile, I think of devices, think of feeding tubes, ventilators, the G tubes, trachs, other apparatuses that the individual may have to stay alive, and that would be considered a fragile person. A person that has other disabilities, it could be any number of diagnoses, that has the inability to perform any of the activities of daily living, feeding oneself, getting in and out of bed, toileting, transferring, bathing, they may be considered fragile as well. So typically on this list, the waiting list is long for class and HCS. The waiting list is much shorter for MDCP and the DBMD because there's fewer people that qualify for those waivers. So the waiting list is not 17 to 20 years. It's much, much shorter for those waivers. So I just wanted to indicate that. Sometimes these medically fragile, the MDCP could be, they could apply for something like this if a baby is born, prematurely. There could be other reasons a person is getting MDCP. So then what we have is we have the Star Plus Home and Community-Based Services. The HCBS, this gives services to adults age 21 and over to keep them in their community and not in a nursing home or facility. Services offered are offered through a managed care organization, for example, United Healthcare, WellCare, AmeriGroup might be some examples that you might see on your Medicaid card as a managed care organization that they commonly call an MCO. If somebody is on the MDCP program, they go to the Star Plus program once they kind of age out of the MDCP program. The Texas Home Living, this gives services to children and adults with intellectual disability or a related condition who live in their own home or their family's home. Then there's the Youth Empowerment Service waiver. This is a 1915C waiver, and I like to talk about this one because this one is not as well known. Everybody's heard of the HCS waiver, but not everybody's heard of the YES waiver. This is a Medicaid program that gives home and community-based services to children under the age of 19 with serious mental, emotional, or behavioral difficulties. Many counties, there's not a wait list. It is by county, but many counties don't even have a wait list for this one. So the primary issue needs to be serious mental or emotional and behavioral difficulties. The primary diagnosis in this example could not be Down syndrome, plus we have the serious mental and emotional. It needs to be, mental health needs to be the main thing of this. So think of runaways, drug use, trouble in school, and all of the acronyms that we throw around with mental health. If we're talking about borderline personality disorder, BPD, OCD, oppositional defiance disorder, ADHD, there's so many, anxiety, depression, self-harm. Those are some examples. And again, it could be drug use, it could be trouble with the law, it could be trouble at school. There could be a number of things, but there is help for you on this. And this is a wraparound program. It's pretty cool how it works. And there's a lot of services available to this. The next one is the Community First Choice. This allows states to provide home and community-based attendance services and supports to Medicaid recipients with disabilities, help with activities of daily living, health-related tasks through hands-on assistance, supervision, or cueing. And the services are to help an individual learn how to care for themselves. Services are usually offered through an MCO. And again, this is an entitlement, and this list isn't very long, typically a year or less for the Community First Choice waiver, okay? How are we on questions? Are we good so far, Veronica?
We have several questions. Allison, it says, my child is on the list since she was 3 and she's now 20. I haven't received any communication in several years, so I don't know if she's still on the list.
Okay, and we are definitely going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how you can check. The local intellectual disability authorities are supposed to contact you every 2 years and ask if you still want to be on the list. And it is important that you respond. And if you move, it's important to update that. But I'm going to table that question just for a few minutes because we're going to go into greater detail on that in just a few slides. Next question.
We have another 2. I don't know if you wanted to answer more
Sure.
questions. Is this for adults with disabilities living with the parents as well?
Yes, it's not just for minors. There are all kinds of Medicaid waivers. And the one that's really for minors is the MDCP waiver. So these are all waivers for people with disabilities. But again, a lot of the requirements for most of the waivers is intellectual disability, but the class waiver, that is not the case.
The last one, what happened to Medicaid waiver eligibility when they get RSDI, but are already getting SSDI based on their own work record? How do we make sure that they don't lose their Medicaid and therefore their Medicaid waiver? If the answer is to change Medicaid, should we go ahead and do that now, even though not now about to draw our Social Security?
So that is a very loaded question, but the answer is it's going to be okay. So the first thing that I want to say, and I should have said this in the beginning, there is a myth that is floating around in the disability community of we don't qualify for Medicaid. We make too much money. And people that have kids that are under guardianship or they claim the kid on the tax return, they're fearful, or maybe they have ignored these Medicaid waivers because they're like, wait, hold the phone. We make way too much money for this. There are 109 Medicaid programs in the state of Texas, a lot. Okay, so while it is true, if you have a child who is under age 18, there are a lot of Medicaid programs that the child would not qualify for because you simply make too much money or you have more than $2,000 assets in your name. But what we're talking about right now are the Medicaid waiver programs, and the eligibility for Medicaid waiver programs is based off of the child's income and assets regardless of their age. It's not based off of the current the parents' income and assets. So I want to make that clear. So if you thought that maybe you didn't qualify, it's a different ball game when we're talking about the waivers. But to answer that person's question, that is a question that comes up all the time. We're afraid of this. Maybe they were getting SSI first and they were getting Medicaid, and then they started getting SSDI under their own record, but they have not earned more than the substantial gainful amount, which means that they still are eligible to be covered under a parent's record once a parent turns on their Social Security retirement. And what the fear is that when they switch over to the childhood disability benefits under the parent's record, and that individual with the disability's income is much higher, that they're now going to disqualify for Medicaid. And so what the answer is that there are laws and protection in place to prevent a person from losing Medicaid eligibility by switching over to childhood disability benefits or SSDI, RSDI, childhood disability benefits. And so as long as the person had Medicaid first, like they qualified for SSI and Medicaid first, and then maybe they worked some and then they earned, and then they qualified for disability benefits under their own record but didn't earn more than SGA, they still have Medicaid right now. So essentially the parent turning on the retirement benefits and applying for childhood disability benefits, you are going to get a letter from the Social Security Administration saying that they no longer qualify for Medicaid. But what that letter doesn't explain is that they no longer qualify for SSI Medicaid. That letter doesn't explain that they're a protected class. It's MEPD DAC Medicaid, DAC. You can put that in the chat box. MEPD DAC Medicaid. It's a mandatory Medicaid group. And so what you need to do when you get that letter saying that they're no longer eligible for the SSI Medicaid, you need to fill out a new H1200 Medicaid application. And on the top of it, I recommend writing in big letters, mandatory Medicaid group, MEPD, DAC Medicaid. And I would submit a cover letter saying my child lost Medicaid from the Social Security Administration because I turned on my retirement benefits. They are in a mandatory Medicaid group. Please reinstate the Medicaid immediately. If your child is already getting a Medicaid waiver, I know that this is a fear of a lot of people of, oh my gosh, we waited so long to get this and now we're at risk of losing it. I would also call your caseworker for your Medicaid waiver so they can work their magic from their end. But when this happens, you do need to submit a new H1200 application to Health and Human Services. And the website for that is Your Texas Benefits, okay? So we'll go further on that in just a minute, but that's the general consensus, and there are protections under the federal law that prevent a person from losing Medicaid for that exact circumstance, okay? But I would say 90% of families or more are very, very worried about that, okay? Services available in all waivers: adaptive age, financial management services, supported employment, employment assistance, minor home modifications, respite, services in all but MDCP, which is included already, various therapies like I was mentioning earlier, unlimited prescriptions, dental, and nursing included in these waivers. Some of the other waivers provide transportation, residential services. The class waiver HCS can provide for residential services, but the place has to accept Medicaid waivers. So not all residential living situations accept Medicaid waivers, or they may have limited spots for the Medicaid waivers. They have private pay slots, and then they have Medicaid waiver slots. So you'll want to research that early. We talked about equine therapy, DAHAB, which they call it ISS now. They called it DAHAB for many, many years, and most of the families that we talk to are familiar with the term DAHAB. But a couple of years ago, I think they changed that to ISS services as opposed to DAHAB, and then sometimes nursing services as well. So waiver general eligibility. Most waivers are for all age groups except for the MDCP, yes, and this Star Plus waiver are exceptions because Star Plus is over age 21, MDCP is through age 20, and then the yes waiver is through age 19. So the financial eligibility, what are they looking for? And this is based off of the kid's income and assets, not yours. The financial eligibility is monthly income is 300% of whatever SSI is. So 300% of SSI is 2901 because SSI for 2025 is $967 a month. And I'm speaking of supplemental security income, SSI, not SSDI. I just want to make that clear. SSI $967 a month. So 300% of SSI is 2901. It does not look at parental income, but individuals must meet the functional eligibility criteria for the specific waiver, and eligibility is not determined until an individual comes to the top of the list, not when you go on the list. So you don't have to prove that a person needs to be on the list. When you come up on the list and they have a waiver for you, that's when you prove that you meet the eligibility requirements. One thing that, because of that question earlier, which was a great question about switching over to, the childhood disability benefits under a parent's record. One thing that I want to make clear, because another misnomer that comes out in the disability community is, quote, I heard that it doesn't matter how much money you have when you switch over to childhood disability benefits, formerly called DAC or disabled adult child, sometimes called SSDI or RSDI. I heard that it doesn't matter how much money you have anymore. And that is true, except for Medicaid. If you intend to keep Medicaid, if you want a Medicaid waiver, it absolutely matters how much assets that they have in their name. And the magic number is no more than $2,000 in their name outside of an ABLE account or a special needs trust. So I want to make it clear that even when a child switches over from SSI to SSDI or the childhood disability benefits, if waivers, Medicaid waivers are important to you, keeping their assets below $2,000 outside of an ABLE account or a special needs trust is going to be really important, or you will lose Medicaid. And all of these waivers require Medicaid eligibility. So it's very, very important. So there's two funding. Do we have a question, Veronica?
Yes, we have some. I think one you already answered. We do not qualify for Medicaid, so what waivers do we qualify for? I think you already talked about that. The next one is very long. It says, my son just got diagnosed with autism at 17 years old, but also already had 7 to 8 other diagnoses. Is there is an option to meet and speak with someone to help me walk me through an outline of what I need to do now that he has been diagnosed fully? We have a private insurance, yet without the autism diagnosis, his entire childhood insurance would not approve certain services because of it. So same with SSI, earning too much, etc. But now I
So let me
feel
just
like I,
say, so on this one, this is probably a one-off, and what I will say is we always offer a free personalized consultation. Listen, if you got a kid that's 15, 16, 17, it is go time, not to stress you, because I don't want to stress you, but that's why we're here. That's how we help you, is to help align your steps. Where are you? What steps do you need to take? What do you need to apply for when? How do you have money in the right buckets? And at the end of this presentation, I'll have our contact information and a QR code that you can take a picture of, and it'll take you to our calendar, and you can schedule a free personalized consultation. We always offer free personalized consultations, so we're happy to help with that. I want to address, because I want people to hear me, on the we don't qualify for Medicaid, so what waivers do we qualify? I want to be crystal clear. Just because you don't qualify for Medicaid, the Medicaid waivers qualification is based off of the kid's income and assets, not the parents. So your children would qualify for Medicaid waivers as long as they don't have more than that amount of money in their names. Okay, so that is really, really important to note. And that's what I was saying. It's a big misnomer, and there's a lot of people that don't have their kids on their list because they just say, we don't qualify for Medicaid, I don't need to get on the list. And they don't understand that the qualifications for these Medicaid waivers is based off of the kid's income and assets, not yours. So I see the question, why does the Social Security Administration take money from the monthly check for household contributions? So basically, if your child is getting SSI and they're getting 647 or 630 something a month, that tells me that you have not submitted a rent agreement showing that your child is paying rent, and they are reducing your SSI check by 1/3. All you have to do is send a one-page rent agreement. You can reach out to us. We do have one for that rent agreement. Submit that to the Social Security Administration showing that your child is paying rent. And each month when the money comes in for SSI, you move the rent amount over to your account. You could turn around and put it in an ABLE account for them, whatever you need, but that will get the amount of SSI increased to the full 967. And again, I just want to reiterate that we're nationally certified as Social Security advisors. We can definitely help you with your issues with the Social Security Administration and questions. And the thing is, I always just like to mention, you're not crazy. This stuff is hard. It is hard. They have all these acronyms and these different programs and different rules for different programs, and things that sound the same that aren't the same, things that don't sound the same that absolutely are the same. And it's very, very confusing. So I just wanted to confirm that you're not alone, and that's why we do what we do. Do we have an additional
just one
question?
last question, Allison, before we go on. It says, "Hi, Ms. Schaberg, could you please clarify the definition of waiver? The general definition is the act of intentional giving up a right, claim, or privilege. What does this definition relate to our context? I know you just talked about briefly, but I can put the two together. I appreciate your help."
So I'm not sure if this is going to answer the questions, and I mentioned this in the beginning, but because we had some people that joined after the start of this, the name waiver is designed to waive off some of the cost of care for caring for an individual with a disability. The intention of a Medicaid waiver is to keep the individual with a disability in home and community-based services, because the statistics show that they thrive the most in home and community-based services versus being institutionalized. So it's designed to waive off some of the expenses to reimburse or to help defray some of the cost that a normal family would have for caring for an individual with a disability. Some people have a loved one with a disability that will have care needs for the rest of their life. Maybe they have attendance services, people that are coming in because the person can't be left alone. So these waivers are designed to waive off some of these expenses that the family has been paying out of pocket for years. Okay, I hope that answers that. If it's not, put it in the chat box. So our interest wait list, again, is a first come, first serve basis. It's statewide. It can be as long as 17, but we've heard 20 years recently. I know Veronica's heard that too. And again, if you're attending from out of state, all states have Medicaid waivers. Some states do not have a waiting list at all. Some states are as bad or worse than Texas. We usually Texas is one of the longer states. Texas and Florida are two of the longest states as far as waiting for services. These are supposed to promote independence. It's supposed to prevent or divert an individual from institution. It is also supposed to address crisis, helps individuals move from transition or move from an institution to home and community-based services. That is the point of these waivers. So let's talk about the wait list. This is an important, a slide. And again, everybody's going to get a copy of these slides, so you don't need to write all this down. But to get on the wait list, there's multiple wait lists. So first of all, there's a such thing as a LIDA, Local Intellectual Developmental Disability Authority, a LIDA. Local Intellectual Developmental Disability Authority. Every county in the state of Texas has a LIDA, okay? And so this website right here, when you put that in your browser, it will take you to a website where you can put in your zip code and it will tell you who your LIDA is, okay? Like in Austin, it's Integral Care. There's Bluebonnet Trails. There's the Harris Center in Houston. The Texana in Fort Bend County. Again, all counties have them. Some of them are called MHMR, but most of them have changed their name from MHMR to something else. So your LIDA is where you're going to get on the waiver interest list for HCS, Texas Home Living Community First Choice. Okay, HCS, Texas Home Living Community First Choice. That's where you're going to get on the interest list for the at the LIDA. MDCP class and deaf-blind multiple disabilities have a separate phone number to get on the list. So one thing that happens to people is they put their child on the list, they call the LIDA, and they get their child on the list, and the person says that they're on all the list. Well, they're on all of their list. They're not on MDCP class and deaf-blind multiple disabilities. So you need to call the separate phone number for the class. And some people may have been on the interest list at the LIDA for 15 years and are just hearing today for the very first time, oh snap, I didn't get them on the class interest list. So there's the phone number for that. And the Star Plus waiver is for over age 21. Okay, so there is the phone number for that. So there's 3 different doors and 3 different places to get yourself on the waiver interest list. So one thing that I used to think was weird is that if I wanted to know where my kids were on the waiver interest list, I needed to call my LIDA, my local authority, and speak to one person, and they would tell me where they were on the list. There was no website. I couldn't just log in and see it myself. It just seems so weird to me in the computer age that we are, right? But a couple, I guess it was about 2 years ago, there is a way that you can now look online to see where your child is on the Texas Medicaid Waiver Interest List. This is for Texas, and this is going to be on your Texas Benefits website, yourtexasbenefits.com. You're going to log into your account. If you don't already have an account, then you can create one. You must create one to move to step 2, okay? And then on the right hand side of the home screen, and sorry this is a little blurry, but you'll see an interest list manager. The right hand side, you can click on this. I've got that circled in red down there, interest list manager. You click on it, it's a couple more clicks. You click on view details, and then it's going to show you where is your person on the list, okay? And if so, like in this example, so this person is on the class waiting list, HCS and Texas Home Living. Okay, so this will show you exactly where they are. So I was actually excited they had added this to that. And honestly, it kind of maybe freed up somebody at the LIDA to do other things than fielding phone calls all day long by everybody in the county wanting to know where they are in the interest list. So if you don't see all the waivers you expected, here's what you can do. You can call the class MDCP, deaf-blind multiple disability, get yourself on that list. You can call your LIDA. And again, we have the link for the LIDA there, so you can look up who your LIDA is and get that worked out. And as I mentioned earlier, this is probably somewhere in my slides, but it is important to respond to your LIDA. Your LIDA from time to time will reach out to you and say, hey, we have little Johnny on the list and we just wanted to make sure you still want to be on there. You need to respond to us. And I think different LIDAs do it differently, but I've heard if you don't respond that they may take them off the list. I have heard of people getting taken off the list, but I think more so they don't do that. But I think it is important if you get a letter and they're asking for a response, it is important that you do respond. Again, if you move, your LIDA changes. So if I live in Houston and my LIDA is the Harris Center and I moved to Sugar Land, my new LIDA is Texana because now I switched counties from Harris County to Fort Bend County. So if you switch counties, your LIDA changes and you need to notify the new county that you're moving to, and you need to notify the county that you're leaving. You do not lose your place in line, but your LIDA will change. So it's important to know this. I like to talk about the crisis diversion slot. If you or your loved one is in crisis, you can contact your LIDA and tell them that you need to request an HCS crisis diversion slot. A crisis diversion slot, these are held open for extreme circumstances, true crisis. The individual is a threat to themselves or others. They are at risk of being placed outside the home. Maybe the caregiver, mom or dad, has been diagnosed with something terrible and they have care needs themselves and can't provide the care that they once did to their loved one. Maybe a caregiver dies. That's a crisis. Mom or dad dies, somebody's diagnosed with a terminal illness. How about mom or dad are taking care of their terminally ill parent, and now they cannot provide the caregiving services that they once did to their own child because they have an ailing family member that they're providing care for? How about a kid who is a threat to themselves or others? We had a couple of crisis diversion slots that were granted. Again, for HCS crisis diversion, they have to have an intellectual disability. I don't care how bad the crisis is. If they don't have an intellectual disability, they're not going to qualify for a crisis diversion slot. That is a hard and fast requirement for the HCS Medicaid waiver. But one situation was where we had grandparents that were taking care of an adult grandson. He was under guardianship, not well, autism, schizophrenia, schizoaffective. Grandma dies, grandpa still works. Grandma was the caregiver. Grandpa's got to work to provide insurance for the kids' critical, medical needs. And if he didn't get some help, then he was at risk of being placed outside the home, and they were able to get a crisis slot. And we had another situation where it was a single parent raising a kid on the autism spectrum. Again, a lot of mental health challenges and aggressive behaviors that were real issues and kind of a threat to themselves and others. And so this is another example of a person that got a crisis diversion slot. But there could be any number of reasons. A lot of people don't even know these exist, and I like people to know. PASSER, pre-admission screening and resident review. This is a diversion and transition from nursing facility or specialized services. This is for somebody to help transition back to home and community-based services from an institution. How are we on questions, Veronica? Are we okay?
We still have some. One attendee says, I had called my leader and not response. What are my options?
The options is to go there. The option is to keep calling. The option is to call the emergency line. And then I would say if you're not making any progress, if your child is under age 19, then I would call Every Child. They're in Austin, and they actually do help people secure those Medicaid waivers. It's only for under age 19. You can also call the ARC of Texas, but don't give up. You can also go to their physical office. I would say that a lot of the LIDAs are understaffed right now, and I think that that's been an ongoing challenge since COVID. They're doing the very, very best that they can. They're working hard. Keep calling, keep leaving messages, call the crisis line, go there is what I would do, but I would definitely not give up. And everybody is going to get a copy of today's slides and the presentation. They'll get an email with the slides and a link to the recording. Somebody said, can you receive the class and Star Plus waiver at the same time? It's one waiver at a time. You can't have multiple waivers. So sometimes people will be having like the class waiver, and then they may come up on the HCS waiver. And then what comes up is which one's better, HCS or class? Well, the HCS budget is much, much bigger than class. But that might not be what your child needs. The class waiver pays for way more therapies than what the HCS waiver does. So if your child's getting a lot of therapies, then the class waiver might be better for you to stay on. There are waiver budgets for all of these. When a person comes up on a list, they do testing, they prove that the person has they qualify for the waiver, and they determine the level of need, LON, level of need. And depending on the level of need of the individual will determine how many hours, service hours, attendant hours, respite hours, therapy hours, those types of things that you are going to get. So what I tell people is choose wisely. If you need some help, you can reach out to us. There are people to help with that, but choose wisely if you're getting one waiver and you come up on the list for another one, and make sure you're not just looking at the budget, but you're looking at your loved one's individual needs, because that could really make a difference. And so if you're around the water cooler, people, other parents with kids with disabilities will say HCS is the best one. And they'll just say that hands down. And it might be the best one for their kid, but it might not be the best one for yours. So just choose wisely. Okay.
All right, we have some other questions.
Sure.
So I think related for the waiver definition. So we are not giving up anything. Giving up a right does not apply then. The waiver thing, that we are not giving up anything with
You're not
this.
turning over your parental rights, and you're not losing your right to have guardianship. If, some people have their kids under guardianship, that's fine. You're not giving your right to claim them on your tax return if you're paying more than 50% of their expenses. You're not losing anything. It's designed to help, not to take away. Now, there are some rules and some different rules for different waivers regarding being paid as a caregiver. Some waivers will pay a parent or a family member as a caregiver. Some waivers have requirements that the guardian can't be the caregiver. So it just depends on which waiver it is. So you'll want to look at that. But sometimes it works out where like an older sibling is paid as the caregiver, the parent is the guardian. It just depends.
You just answer it. He asked again, Ms. Schaberg, your definition of waiver makes a lot of sense to me. So we are not giving up a right that my child is entitled to?
No, you're not losing anything. In my opinion, a waiver is you're gaining services or defraying some of the cost of caring for your loved one with a disability by state funds, right?
Funding.
Is basically what's happening. Is so basically they're helping offset some of the expenses that you've been paying out of pocket all of this time. Okay.
When I
To
create
me,
an
the only
account,
thing, I just want to say that to me, the only thing that I don't think you're losing anything, but again, you have to stay Medicaid qualified. You have to make sure that their assets are less than $2,000. No more than $2,000 in their name outside of a special needs trust or an ABLE account. And some people are annoyed by that. I think that the price is small, and the Medicaid waiver, some of these waiver budgets, like the highest level of need on the HCS waiver budget is like 300 and some odd $1,000 a year. So what I would say is that's not nothing. That's a lot. And that could be for the rest of their life once they get that. So that will cut down drastically on the pull of assets of what money you need to have in the special needs trust if a waiver is defraying some of their costs. Okay.
okay, thank you. When I create an account on your texasbenefits.com, shall I do it in my name or my sister's?
Well, if the benefits are for you should do it for the benefit of the person with a disability, and use because any waiver interest list is going to be tied to their social, not yours.
I put my adult sister on the list when she moved to Texas, but there is more than one list.
So yes, and that is in the slides. Again, there's the MDCP class, deaf, blind, multiple disabilities, that's one phone number. Your LIDA, the Local Intellectual Developmental Disability Authority, is going to be another list, and that's going to be Texas Home Living, HCS, and Community First Choice. And then there's a third phone number for the Star Plus waivers. So all of those, all of the above.
The last question. For my younger child, mine is 10, where there is a bit of uncertainty what the needs will be when he's going to be an adult, how would you advise deciding on what waiver to sign up for?
Because the waiting list is so very, very long, we suggest that you sign up for all the waivers and you take whichever one they come up for first. And once you take one, it doesn't kick you off the list for the other ones. Maybe 5 years later, you come up on the other waiver and that other waiver may be better. So you would make a decision at that point to switch. So to me, it's worth, and when we have a person that has a disability, and some people might be on here and say, well, my kid doesn't have an intellectual disability, so should I even be on the list? And my answer is yeah, you should, because things change. I've seen over the years in my practice where people have had kids on the spectrum that were just kind of close. They're kind of on the cusp, not necessarily under 70, but right there at it. But then there's an event.
Very borderline kind of thing.
Yes, it's kind of borderline. And then between 18 and 22, there might be some emotional disturbance, psychosis, some of the other, schizophrenia or other things kind of rears their heads from time to time. And what we've seen is those kids, they then test lower. So if you wait for something like that to happen, it's fine to be on the list and come up on the list, and good news, everything's fine and the kid doesn't have an intellectual disability and they don't qualify for HCS. So what? That's good news. But if you go ahead and have them on the list, because again, they're determining eligibility when they come up on the list and there's a waiver available. There's a slot available for them, not when they go on the list. So I think it's okay to do that. So moving on, kind of getting started with special needs planning. I know a person in the chat box had mentioned that earlier, starting, feeling behind. What do I need to do? Feeling overwhelmed, like what steps do I need to take? This is so much. It's a lot of information. I don't know where to start. The first thing that we suggest is that you work with a special needs planner to help you formulate a plan. Fewer than 150 advisors in the United States have any background in special needs. So whether you work with us or you work with another firm, we strongly recommend that you work with a planner that is specialized and specifically nuanced in special needs. Other financial advisors are great, but they don't have any background about Social Security, SSI, Medicaid, Medicare, Medicaid waivers. They can accidentally mess you up. So that's why it's important. It's the same reason I use this analogy of why if you have a heart problem, you're not going to a podiatrist, or if you have a heart problem, you're not going to your PCP, you're going to go see a specialist, you're going to go see a cardiologist. It's kind of the same thing. Understanding the difference between a special needs planner and a special needs attorney, that's also important. When it comes to planning for your loved one with a disability, this is not a do-it-yourself project. You need a team. You need a team of professionals that are specifically nuanced in this. There are a lot of attorneys out there and they're highly intelligent, highly educated, but that doesn't mean that they're educated in special needs. They may not have any background on people with disabilities. And again, that matters. You want to work with an estate planning attorney that knows exactly what they're doing with guardianship, exactly what they're doing when they're drafting a special needs trust. We have seen special needs trust drafted by attorneys that do not have a background in special needs that are just wrong, where they put a Medicaid payback in a third-party special needs trust, and that's just wrong. So those are some of the things that can happen. So if you already have a special needs trust, you already have your legal documents, good for you. We're happy that you do. If you don't, it's okay. Don't beat yourself up, but you need to get working on it. And we're happy to provide a list of attorneys that we know are nuanced in special needs and great with working with people with disabilities. So we're happy to provide that list. And we recommend getting a second opinion. So a lot of people come to us because they've already done a lot of planning. A lot of them are already retired, or retirement is on the horizon in the next so many years, right? And they want to make sure that they get it right. Sometimes people just want a second opinion, or what we call a look under the hood of, what do I already have in place? What knobs do we need to turn? What is right? What is wrong? And make the changes that they need to. And we suggest that doing that before the crisis happens, before there's a medical emergency, an accident, or an unexpected health event that either ends in incapacitation or early death. It's important to have these conversations early. So gathering all the necessary planning documents, this is your wills, your trust, all of your financial statements, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, 401ks, 403bs, pensions, annuities, health insurance, disability insurance, long-term care insurance. It could be outside of your employer. It could be with your employer. All of these things go into the planning process. All of these things are things that we take into consideration in a person's retirement that could be 25 to 35 years. And also funding a trust that you may need to fund for 25 to 35 years once you're gone. So we also talk about developing a letter of intent. We have entire webinars on developing a letter of intent, and so you can check that out on the Consolidated Planning Group YouTube channel. That link is going to be in our slides as well, that you guys are going to get later today. But we want you to think about your vision of how you hope things will look for your special needs child, but as well as yourself. The main thing is you got to know, I don't ever have to tell parents to think more about their kid. I need to tell parents to think more about themselves and how they hope their vision will look, because their semblance of retirement is different than having kids that sail off into the sunset and are independent. So there needs to be balance in all of that, because when there's not, then the caregiver's health declines and their caregiving ability is shortened. Okay. So we want to preserve eligibility for state and federally funded programs. We're talking about SSI, Social Security, Disability, RSDI, SSDI, Childhood Disability Benefits, DAC, Disabled Adult Child. So SSDI, RSDI, DAC, CDB, that's kind of all in the same umbrella under Social Security. SSI is Supplemental Security Income. We have entire webinars on our YouTube channel about this. And it is complicated and confusing, and it devotes an hour discussion about that. So if you haven't seen that, you might want to check that out. A lot of times people use life insurance to fund a special needs trust. An ABLE account is under the tax code 529A. We can put $19,000 a year in 2025 in an ABLE account, additional $15,560 if the person is working. The disability must have occurred prior to age 26, and in 2026 that age limit is going up to age 46. Entire presentations on ABLE accounts. Money grows tax-free distributions, if it can be construed as achieving a better life for an individual with a disability, and of course the special needs trust. And some people will ask the question, why should I have a special needs trust? Why should I have an ABLE account? And the answer is a special needs trust can have an unlimited amount of money, whereas an ABLE account can have a limited amount of money. If an ABLE account goes over $100,000, the person will disqualify for SSI. Okay, so a special needs trust can have an unlimited amount of money. We cannot leave life insurance proceeds to an ABLE account, but we could leave life insurance proceeds to a special needs trust for the said individual. And an ABLE account can pay for shelter without a 1/3 reduction to SSI. That is not applicable to SSDI, DAC, Childhood Disability Benefits, RSDI, because it doesn't matter. But if you pay for shelter out of a special needs trust and the person is getting SSI, there would be a 1/3 reduction to the SSI, but you could pay for it out of an ABLE account without that 1/3 reduction. So this is just a list of things that should be on your radar. Developing a special needs care plan, we can help you with that. There'll be a QR code that you can schedule your free initial consultation with us. We'll be happy to chat with you more about your details. Future care cost estimates, we help with that. How much money do we need to fund the special needs trust, small, medium, and large? What if they need full care? What if they just need some care? What does that look like? Today we talked about the waiver interest list, understanding the differences between SSI and SSDI and knowing when to apply. Beneficiary designations, it's important not to name your loved one with a disability directly as a beneficiary in anything that you have. It should be their special needs trust for that said benefit, because we don't want them to disqualify for Medicaid by having more than $2,000 in their names. We have entire webinars on special needs trust and how to fund them and the different types of special needs trust. We strongly suggest touring residential living communities. I think of Marbridge, I think of Daymark, I think there's so many awesome ones. We've got Brookwood. There's a lot of awesome ones all across the state. I'm not leaving anybody out. There's a long list. But touring these facilities early and getting yourself on the waiting list, so that way you have the opportunity to say yes in the future. You can still say no, but having a place, because one day we may not always be as agile as we are now and be able to provide the caregiving services that we once did, and one day we may need caregiving services ourselves. So consider guardianship, alternatives to guardianship. We have entire webinars on this: supported decision-making agreement, lesser restrictive options. And then, of course, there's post-education options. Tomorrow, we're doing a webinar on higher education for individuals with disabilities. So if you're looking at that, check that out, because there are lots and lots of options all across Texas, all across the United States for our kids with disabilities, including kids with intellectual disabilities. So you do want to check those out. This will be our upcoming webinars, and so you can sign up and register for any of those. And then this is just our QR code that will take you to our calendar. You can schedule your free personalized consultation. We have our YouTube channel, our Facebook, and our Instagram, so you can contact us that way. And we have our email address and our phone number. If you're listening to this on podcast, or picking this up or seeing this on our YouTube channel after the fact, if you would like a copy of the slides, then simply email us at contact@cpgcares.net. We'll be happy to provide the slides to you. For everybody that is registered for today, you are going to get linked to the recording and a copy of today's slides. So I know we're out of time, but I just want to answer any last questions that we have before we go.
Yes, we have some last question. So if you have two special needs kids, do you have to register each one?
Yes, you do.
Yes.
And to that note, you would need more than one special needs trust. Each child would have to have their own special needs trust. So you need to register each child for the Medicaid waivers, and you would need two special needs trusts. And I have more than one child with disabilities. So good question.
How do we reach out to you for the agreement?
For the what?
Rental agreement?
Yeah, you can contact us at the email or the phone number, or schedule a free personalized consultation. So the rental agreement is going to be important, or you will get a 1/3 reduction to SSI.
Does it cost to talk to a special needs planner?
No, we always offer free personal. I can't speak for somebody else, but we always offer free personalized consultation. Those are 45-minute consultations. We work on a collaborative team here at CPG, and that meeting is designed to learn a little bit more about the planning that you've done so far. What do you already have in place? Answer some of the questions that you have, and go over the doors that you can walk through with our team. And we're here to complement the planning that you've already done. Some people have done a lot of planning and they just want a second opinion. Some people say, I would be embarrassed for you to see what we haven't done. And I say, don't be embarrassed. It's about getting started. And some people got started, but then they put it on the shelf, and life got busy. Life just happened, and they needed to pick up where they left off. Wherever you are in the planning process, we can help you. So don't beat yourself up about that. And the initial consultation is always free. So it doesn't cost you anything to find out a little bit more about CPG and how we work. And I don't know, I can't speak for other firms on what they charge or do.
Last question. My son is about to turn 18 in October. He's in the autism spectrum. He has issues with executive functioning and behavior sometimes. I was told at the last our meetings that once he's turned 18, he's the one making decisions as far as for an R meeting. Do you recommend that we fill out the decision supporting making form or another form?
Yes.
Thanks, Ms. Schaberg. My son is verbal, but I do not think he will understand what is on the RIP document.
Okay, so that's a slippery slope, and I want you to watch the guardianship webinar on the Consolidated Planning Group YouTube channel, and you can post that in the chat box again one more time, Veronica. So
Sure.
here's the thing, there is a such thing as an educational power of attorney. And so you can have them sign that educational power of attorney when they turn 18. And we do recommend a supported decision-making agreement. There's also a traditional power of attorney and HIPAA release, healthcare power of attorney. But the issue is, and they talk about this in the guardianship webinar, is capacity of whether or not the individual that's signing a power of attorney or a healthcare power of attorney or an educational power of attorney has the capacity to understand what they're signing. So the bottom line is if they don't have capacity, they don't have the capacity to understand what they're signing, then you may need to talk to an attorney further about guardianship, partial guardianship, or any of those alternatives. And I just like to encourage people. I know this is a scary time. If you've got a kid that's coming to 18, you've never done this before. You don't have to know what you need when you go sit down with an attorney. The law is least restrictive, most appropriate for the ward. So the attorney is going to talk to you. They're going to talk to your loved one. They're going to go over what the options are, and they're going to lead you to the least restrictive, most appropriate. So I would say, and that process can start 6 months prior to a child turning 18. And so if you know for sure that your child does need guardianship, you should start those conversations early with an attorney. So that way the guardianship or partial guardianship is in place when they turn 18. It is not valuable to have them sign a power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney, educational power of attorney, or any of those things prior to them turning 18. You could do it on their 18th birthday, but you already have those rights when they're 17. It's once they've turned 18, that's when those documents need to be signed, the day or the day after they turn 18. Okay. So thanks everyone. You guys had great questions today, and we're happy to help any way that we can. Thanks for being here, and get yourselves checked out on these Medicaid waivers, on where you are on the list, if you're on the list, and getting yourself on the list. You'll be glad that you did. So thanks again, Veronica. It's always a pleasure
Thank you,
to
Allison, for
partner with
everything.
you. So
And you guys will receive an email with all the slides and handouts. Thank you so much for joining, and see you guys in the next one.
thank you. Take care. Bye now.
Bye.